Okay, we're going to tear down this 1017 excuse me, velvet drive transmission. Couple things to note. Red tags are for small block engines. So if you see here, I don't know how well it's going to come out, but red tags are 1017s, green tags are 1018. 1018 is supposed to be for a big block engine, has more forward clutch plates and one more reverse plate than a 1017 does. So the older the older transmissions were AS71C and AS72C. So a 71 was the same thing as a 1017, and a 72 was the same thing as a 1018. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take this apart. And the first thing you want to note on these things is the pump orientation. I've talked about this in another video, and you see how it's got an arrow going this way. All right, this is set up for an opposite rotation engine. So the flywheel is turning right hand. I know we're going left hand because we're facing it, but this pump you can rotate. So see how there's an arrow down here? If we rotate this 180 degrees, we can put this on a left hand rotation engine. So this does not reverse the prop. This is only to make it pump fluid. If I put this on the wrong engine rotation, I have 3 neutrals. So there's a lot of folklore saying that you can just flip the pump and switch the prop the other way. That's wrong, and I'll show you that on teardown. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the dipstick out, expect the fluid. This looks like it's got strawberry milk, so it got water in it. Excuse me. Grab a 1/2-inch wrench here. All right, and we're going to take this shifter out here. This is our shifter linkage. So we'll pop this guy out. And all right, we got that out of here. I'm gonna grab a basket here. I'll grab this bucket. Throw all this stuff in here for now. All our baskets are tied up. All right, I don't know if you saw it, there's a ball that fell out of here. There's a 5/16 check ball. It's a detent. So you gotta watch that when it pops out. See how that would be forward, neutral, reverse. That's your detent ball that rides right here. So inventory that. There's a spring here. That's a plain colored spring. I'm going to put this aside because I'm going to show you there's other springs in this transmission too. Next thing we'll do is take out the neutral safety plate. Okay, 3 screws, that's out the door. We'll take this out. There's our little ball that inhibits our starter if it's hooked up correctly. This plate, it's got a little tab, drives up against the shifter pressure regulator assembly. So that tab goes in just like that. Take that out. Now that that's out, we can drive our shift valve out. Lightly tap it, should come right out. All right, the shift valve comes out, and we will take apart our shift valve. This is also the pressure regulator. So obviously where I shift this, fluid comes in through here. This is our pressure relief. That's our cooler return. There's a big spring here. I'm going to show you in a second. So the fluid comes in here, and then it's directed here and here. Okay. So pump pressure comes in here. Once it gets about 110 psi, this spring relieves, and then boom, this goes out to the cooler, which is this fitting right here. So cooler flow is excess pressure. All right, which you got to have, because if I have a low pressure concern, I won't have any cooler flow. The transmission will overheat. So that's usually clue number 1. If it's getting hot, it's not enough pressure, generally speaking. We'll get this O-ring out of here. Ouch, I don't rip my hand. There we go. Didn't kill ourselves. Now here's the trick I do to release. This spring's pretty heavy. I just take one of those bolts from the neutral safety and I crimp it in a vise here. There's a snap ring here. Now you gotta be careful. This is under some heavy tension, so you can lose an eyeball or whatever, so pay attention. I usually just take a hammer and drive this guy down. Come back up here since I slid. See, I'm already halfway out there. Take a screwdriver, take it the rest of the way. Now, this is where you got to be careful. This can hang up as I come out of here. And it did not. Grab my little ring. Put this in my clean box. There's your relief spring. This piece, you'll see it's, you can go out, you can put it on two ways. That goes down, so that goes out like this. Then I take my pinky finger and grab this relief valve. That's my pressure relief valve. That should be nice and free in here. If that's binding and stuff, that's no good. That can cause a low or high pressure concern. So that's pretty good. All right, next thing we're gonna do is I started talking about this pump. We gotta mark this rotation. Okay, so what I like to do is I just take a chisel that I will find here. All right. I will take a chisel and I'm going to mark this, because if I screw this up for this guy and he's got it marked starboard, we got to make sure it's right. So mark like right there and right there. So those two little marks I made there, center punch, that's perfect. I'm going to line those up when I'm done. Pop this apart. Oops, ½ inch. My pump bolts, and I'll just take a hammer and lightly tap this. It should move. And there's my pump. Okay, inspect it real quick. Just make sure there's no deep grooves and stuff in here. This one looks pretty good. There's a gasket right here. Get rid of him. We'll pound our front seal out. He's out the door. All right, our pump. I'll talk more about the rotation later on the assembly video. But this should just slide right out of here. That's our pump. Again, look at this. This looks really good. Nice machine. When you see grooves and stuff in here, that's no good. Pump's junk. There's a keyway here to drive the pump. We got to drive him out. A little chisel. And he comes out the door. Try not to drop it, but we will. All right. And I always check end play right here. That's pretty good. That's not a problem. Now, these are 3/8 12 point. These 4 screws. That's what holds this reverse plate on. So you take your 3/8 12 point, 4 of them. Okay, this popped right out. See, some of these you got to drive out or drive a wedge in, but that popped right out. All right, so we'll be careful. We're going to slide this guy off. Okay, and this is our reverse piston right in here. Now what I do to prevent a Dextron shampoo is we're going to use air. This is the feed line right here. When fluid goes in here, this piston comes up and pushes on the reverse clutch, which I'll show you in a second. But the first thing I do is I put this little rag over here so we don't get soaked. Then I'm just going to take shop air and blow this in. That's going to push this up out of here for me. Just like that, okay? So we'll come in here and grab the rest of it. There's 2 O-rings in here for this reverse piston. Usually pries up crooked like that. There'll be a bunch of fluid in here, so this makes a mess. But then I take this O-ring out of here. That's the OD one. Okay, throw him away. And we'll set this over here for now. And there's an O-ring right here on the inside for the inside seal. Just pick him up like that. So that's good. I've got this old computer cart teardown table. We'll just dump this over here, let her drain into a pan underneath. All right, so this is my reverse pressure plate. This plate here is orientation specific. If you look at this, see how it's got a V and there's 3 little alignment dowels right here, here, and here, okay? This plate goes in just like this V to the top, or 12 o'clock. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, you're going to see all these springs in here, okay? These are the reverse springs that keep the pressure plate away from the reverse clutch, because if this is tight, I'm going to rewind. So you'll see that there's a spring except in this hole right here. This hole right there is the drain bag. So there's a spring all the way around here. So we will remove these springs next. Throw those in there. Now I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to grab, I'm going to pull this whole drum assembly with the reverse clutches and everything on it. Okay? So I'll take my reverse clutches, and since this is a 1017, there's 3 total plates, 2 frictions and 1 steel. If this is a 1018, I'd have 1 more friction and 1 more steel. I'd have 3 and 2. But these look really good. See, there's no abnormal wear. We will reuse these. So that looks good. Oops. Now, there's a thrust washer back here. All right, we'll grab him and we'll put him in the cleaning pin. Now, this is the forward clutch. That should turn just like that. There's another fiber thrust washer. Early ones were steel right here. Okay, we will put him in there. Now, I'm going to tear this drum down next. All right, so what I do is I just set it here just on top of this vise so I can hang it out. All right, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this snap ring off right here. All right, we'll pop him out with a screwdriver, just walk him out of here. All right, and the next snap ring I take out is right here, the input shaft. So I'm gonna take him out with a pair of external snap ring pliers. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to flip this on its side, and we're going to take this rubber mallet and we're going to drive the input shaft right out of here. Just like that. Slide that guy right out. Okay, this is the input shaft. There's 2 metal sealing rings in here, and this is where the fluid comes in through here, through a set of bushings, which I haven't even showed you yet, that where the oil is going to come in to engage forward. So we will take these rings out just like so. These come in the rebuild gasket set. Alright, so this can go over here in our cleanup pile. This is our junk pile. Alright, now you notice I left this snap ring aside. I'm going to talk about this in a second. So here is our forward clutch. This is the back side of it. It's got clearance, which is supposed to, about 30 to 50 thousandths, something like that. I don't normally take this bearing out. There's no reason to. There's a snap ring here. You can drive this out. I don't normally do that. Now, this is where a press is really needed. Now, you could set this up and take a hammer and beat on this, but that's what hillbillies do. Okay, I see these things get all marred up. When you start punching it, even with brass, you can mar that surface up. That's a machine surface where that oil seals in there. So this is what I do. I take it over to our little foot press and I set this up. So I'm just sitting on the outside of these 2 guys. Okay. So I'm going to come under here and look, make sure that I'm clear, which I am. And then I take this, which is just a shop. This is actually a Chrysler special tool for doing front axle work, but it works perfect for this. I'm going to set that right in there. I'm going to use a pin. I'm just going to press this right out. Wider here. So, okay. All right, that's my forward clutch. I'll take my Chrysler special tool out here. All right, so here's the components here. This is forward. First thing we're going to do is you're going to see there's a backing retaining ring in here. There's no groove. This guy does not sit in a groove at all. If you look in here, this is just a spacer. This is usually a 90 thousandths snap ring. It is thicker than the one that holds the pressure plate in. This is usually about 75 thousandths. If you look, see how the one on my left is a little thicker than the one on the right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put these in here. If you mix them up, you can't get it in the groove. And then we're going to, in this groove, if you put the 90 thousandths in here, it won't hook up. So I'm going to grab forward. This is a 1017. There are 9 plates here. Okay, this is the backing plate. And I have 5 and 4. I have 5 brass and I have 4 steels. outside of these two plates here. These look really good. There's no abnormal scoring. They're not overheated. They're not warped. So we will reuse these more than likely. Set that over here. And then this drum here we can set in our clean pile. All right, now this is my forward piston. This is what's coming up to engage these clutches. This is a Belleville spring. See how it's got an angle? That only goes in one way. All right, and then the next thing I'm going to do is there's 3 holes in here. Well, it's pretty hard to block these. I'm going to use my compressed air again to blow this piston, this aluminum piston. There's 2 O-rings in here. We got to clean these up. So I can usually block one of them with my fingers, put air in the other, and let air escape out of the other, and it should still pop out. Just like that. Okay. There's an O-ring seal here. We'll go ahead and get him out of there. All right, and there's an O-ring seal in here for the inner. Go ahead and take him out. All right. You'll be ready for the jet. And there's a ring here that pushes up against the Belleville right there. See? That I just take out. See how that popped right out? Okay. Throw him in there. All right. And our forward clutch backing drum piece. All right. So we got that done. Now, the next thing is we're going to have to take this Planetary stays in here unless I take the output nut off. All right. So we'll take the output nut off. So we'll use our handy dandy impact. Okay. This nut is a one-time use nut. It's got a nylock in there. I always replace these. The service manual tells you to do that too. Oh no, by the way, on those springs, sorry, that's why I left this aside. You see how this spring is a little bit different than the springs for the reverse piston? So the reverse piston ones are a little longer, and that one's gold and that one's dark. So the gold detent ball right here, and these guys are for the reverse piston. All right, sometimes this pops right off. Yep, all right, that did. And the next thing we'll do is we'll take a rubber mallet, and then we're gonna drive this guy right out. All right, that's my pinion. And then while that's out, I'm gonna go ahead, well, try to slow down here. All right, this is my pinion carrier. So this is where fluid comes in. This is the feed circuit for forward. This is lube. This is pressure in. All right, there's 4 rings in here we got to take out, which I'll take those out later on. All right, so we got this little plate here. This is a 5/8 socket size. We will buzz this plate out. This is a bearing retainer. Pop that guy right off. There's a gasket here. We'll drive my seal out, my rear seal. This seal is just specific to 1-to-1s. There's different seal reductions. We're not doing a reduction here. This is just 1-to-1. So I'll drive my seal out, and he can go in the cleaning box. Now the next thing, I'll drive this bearing. That bearing popped right out. See, there's a groove in this bearing. This is meant for a snap ring. Velvet Drive did not use that, but that snap ring goes to the outside. I mean, I suppose it doesn't matter if you put it in wrong, but sometimes if not, you take a punch from the other side and drive him out. But he's like a slip fit, sort of, kind of. Bearing feels good. All right, and then we're going to take our inlet screen out, which I think is 1 1/16. All right, on this, I think this application is a pair of Chrysler. Like I got 2 of these to do for a customer. So sometimes the fittings will vary here depending on manufacturer. Chrysler used pipe thread. I mean, this is 3/4 pipe down here anyway. All right, this has a tube, and if I take my finger, there's a screen in here. So this is the inlet screen. Now there are some changes to these. Some have a short screen with a spring and a washer, which like the 72 with the reductions do, but 1-to-1s normally have this long tube that goes all the way into the case. Okay, that's cooler return. So cooler return is also my pickup. So we'll take this baffle. This is a oil baffle to prevent foaming. Just reach in here with your fingers and crush it and pop it out. Now, the later transmissions were plastic. Like this is a late model transmission in the late 80s, early 90s. They had these, okay? Most of these are steel. There's a steel thing that snaps into here. So most of these is not going to be plastic. It's there to prevent aeration of the fluid. You got that big drum spinning around in there, just like that. Now, I forgot to take my little pins out. There's 3 of these. That's what holds my steels and my backing plate for my reverse. So there's 3 of these. 1018, these are a little bit longer, but small block ones are shorter. And there you go. So we'll look in here. This is oh yeah, that's the other thing I want to tell you about. Early transmissions, AS71C, AS72C, have bushings here. They don't have these sealing rings. So you got to watch these bushings. The bushing case uses a thrust washer here. You'll notice there's no thrust washer. This goes directly in. That's normal on a sealing ring case. So later cases starting in the 70s, they went to sealing rings with no bushings. Older cases are bushings, no sealing ring with a thrust washer here. So pay attention to what you have. There's going to be some differences as production changes. So there you go. There's a crash course on tearing down a Velvet Drive 1-to-1. In part 2, we'll assemble this.